as we have our eyes closed and we rise up in the knowing that is the truth of life, that God is all there is. We know this, we see it, we be it, we are it, in unity consciousness within and without. It just is. And what a beautiful joy bubbles in our hearts, our minds, our very spirit that magnifies right where we are, individually and together, here in this beautiful sanctuary, whether on Zoom or in person. Choosing to be here in this moment of now, being in the right place at the right time for the right reasons. So we get to hear what we need to hear and see what we need to see. And knowing that Reverend Jerry Hobby, in her own beautiful high awakening in spirit, is who we get to hear and see and intake, because she is listening wisely and profoundly to the God within, knowing that what she says is what we want and need to hear in this very moment of now, all these moments of now. And this beautiful service that every Sunday just seems to function miraculously. Well, it may seem miraculous, but we have our practitioner, Adrian, who is miraculous in his own God self, to have all of this come together so professionally every week. And all of us who choose to take our roles seriously, in fun, but seriously, because it's meaningful and it means something to each one of us, individually and collectively. So in this knowingness, we perform whatever duty it is we are meant to perform. And we have the joy in expressing God in, through, and as each one of us, individually and collectively. I'm so grateful for understanding, for knowing, and for getting to be here right now. And I'm sure you are too. So we can anchor this by saying, and so it is.
At Center for Spiritual Living Beaumont, we believe in spiritual living. Above all else, it is a philosophy that teaches us how. We invite everyone to practice this philosophy by living in principle. We believe that God is all there is, and each person's relationship to God is a personal one. Every person, place, and thing, and all the space for spiritual living Beaumont.
And now it's my privilege to introduce to you Reverend Jerry Hobby. And for those of you who may not have been here in the past or seen us in our videos, Reverend Jerry Hobby has done something wonderful. She has created her own ministry online, and it serves the whole world. And the title of her ministry is Spiritual Enlightenment and Truth Focus Ministry. I mean, does that tell you anything? So I know what we're going to be hearing is, like I said in the prayer, exactly what we are meant to hear. We're so grateful to have you.
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you so much. I want to tell you something. I am just always inspired every time I come here. So rich, so much wonder and beauty. I feel today as if I have stepped into a timeless space. And when I say I've stepped into this timeless space, I feel we've heard the story of Jesus coming into this space, into this place, this habitation of peace, Jerusalem. And if you will just join me right now in it, just acknowledging that we are all there in this space. It started from the beginning when we did our morning meditation. And I could feel just moving and stepping into that space. We are at the cusp of experiencing something dynamic. I believe we cannot take life seriously. And I believe, too, that we cannot take life for granted. And this is the most important part. And so today, I'm going to say that I get to have one of my loftiest of intentions. And I look at Dorothy and she laughs at me because I'm part of the Natalie Foundation, and I get the opportunity of serving as president of that foundation. And the most important question that I've been asking our team is, what is the loftiest of your intentions? Step into that realm of being courageous, standing in the truth of who we are. And this entire day has been created and fashioned for us all to space. And as we step into that space today, we get an opportunity to allow our lights to shine. We get an opportunity to be that blessing in the world. We get to sow the seeds. We get to move into that state of enlightenment. And so we've heard prayers and we've raised our vibration. And as we have raised our vibration, we have raised ourselves to a new state of awareness. And in that new state of awareness, we get an opportunity to step into it. We get a chance to create new stories. We all tell ourselves stories. But I'm going to say this. Those stories are not necessarily the true story. We're not hearing the full story of our being. And the most important part for us is to be able to have and to tell ourselves the true story. Having fun right now. When I say we're having fun, we said we're talking about this new experience. In a couple of months, we're going to be in a new space. We're setting something new in motion. We're setting a new cause in motion. You guys have heard that before. You've heard that term, right? Setting a new cause in motion. Well, today it's an opportunity for us all to set that new cause in motion. And so when we start to tell the story, I said, now we got to be careful in terms of how we're telling that story. We got to be careful. And I want you to know that the story that you tell is a story that will reflect back to us. Or the Psalm says, life will reflect back to the thinker what the thinker will think into it. And we get that opportunity to reflect it personally within our lives. And I'm going to say personally, for all of humanity. We get to show up and be a beneficial presence in the world. Now, I'm sharing this with you, and I think that I'm going to say over the past few years, I've become clearer and clearer that I get to be intentional. I get to pick and choose. I get to use my will in a way that supports good, even more so. And those choices that are being made are choices that support and they fulfill the good for all concerned, creating a space and a place that works for us all. And so I'm inviting you to step into this realm today on this Palm Sunday. We're having this coronation. We're stepping into Jerusalem right now and up to something even greater. We get to surpass and tell a different story. And this story is a story that is far greater than we've ever experienced before. And we may have a few pieces of the puzzle. And what I'm going to say to you too is that there are some kindly surprises along the way. So we've got to leave some room for spirit to show up and to show out within us and through us. Now, this process of stepping into this new realm of awareness is going to require that we move through some human experiences. I want you to remember that we're all spiritual beings having this human experience. I think that's what Practitioner Hobby, his answer to the question today was. It is about us standing in our truth, in our authentic self, And as we stand into our authentic self, great good can fulfill itself and it can reveal itself. Now, there's the part in the story about coming into Jerusalem is when we ride on this donkey, okay? And donkeys, what we know, they have another name. I'm not going to say the name, but we all know what that name is. And sometimes it shows up as plain old stubbornness. It shows up as an undisciplined person. It shows up as something or that belief that we're untrainable. If we were the donkey, that we're untrainable, that we can't get it, that we don't have the skill set. We have within us the wherewithal to accomplish whatever it is that we need to accomplish. And so as we move through this experience, part of it is we are going to need to move into a place of non-resistance. What we resist will what? It will persist. So when we move into this place of non-resistance, many years ago I did a course with Stretton Smith, and in that course, many of you probably have had taken that Stretton Smith. I'm seeing people nod right now, and he talks about lowering that threshold. Part of it is we get to apply these principles, and we get to stay focused. And I'm going to say, I'm just hearing these words, keep our minds focused on God. And when we keep our mind focused on God, we keep looking and seeing God in the experience. And when we see God, then we get an opportunity to see that threshold lower. And when that threshold lowers itself, we're able to go in and we're able to move forward. Now, when we become and we make friends with the donkey, or we begin to dance with the donkey, we do the tango with the donkey, then what happens is we began to create music. We began to create a new wave. We began to experience something new. We get to celebrate. And it's like, I didn't see that coming. That's what it's all about. We live in the realm of infinite possibilities. And it is important for us to remember that we get to break precedent with what has happened in the past. And we get to make new agreements. We get to create new vistas. This is the spirit of creativity. And this is what is alive within each and every one of us. Now, sometimes people say, well, but I'm not a creative being. You don't have to be it because it is alive within you. You are an expression of the infinite. And when we surrender to the infinite, we get to dance. We get to heal. We get to be that moving expression of good. So I want to share with you about that donkey ride. The donkey ride is going to be an important ride in your life. And when I say called the dark night of the soul, do you know what I'm talking about? We all move through seeming, and I want you to hear this word, seeming struggles in life. But part of the whole process is learning to ride the wave. That's what Dr. Christian Sorensen would say, riding the wave. He wrote a book about that. In Qigong, we move with energy and we move with the flow. Many years ago, I moved through something, and it was a hard pill to swallow. This change, this transformation, but this change and transformation led to something even greater, this ministry. And in moving through that, one of the things that I returned to, and this is the important part, because I believe that the dance that we do with the donkey is a practice of spiritual practice. And when I say that, for me at that time, I just started doing Qigong, and I kept doing Qigong and moving through the experience that I was moving through. Dancing with experience, just like we were singing today. I just loved it when you guys were singing with Mr. Hobby, the Lord's Prayer. We all know that prayer. But you know what? This time of the year, it has deep meaning. And I said eventually I'm going to get to a point where I'm going to do a course study. I'm going to develop a course study based on the original language of the Lord's Prayer. Because every time we do that Lord's Prayer, we're flexing a muscle. And when we flex the muscle, that's what dancing with the donkey is. It's about flexing the muscle. We open up to something even greater. We create something even greater. We move. When we sang and we engaged in spiritual practice, we raised our energy. And if we can raise that energy and then move into the mundane of the world, the different things that are coming forth in the world, I'm just here, just where spirit can say, this is how we get to deal with the things that are happening all around us. And then we can bring that energy into the space to allow for creative ideas. Okay? Now, I can see that in this community, part of my work today is to be an affirmation that it's working here in this community. When I say that is when you have come up with creative ideas in terms of how you can play and how you can dance together, that is what this is all about. Life is not meant to be a place of drudgery. Life is not meant for us to struggle. And if there is something happening right now, it's a matter of what we bring to it and how we bring it to support the evolution of good. I love what Ernest Holmes says in What We Believe. And what he says is, let me find that real quick. We believe in our soul, in our own spirit, our own destiny. For we understand that the life of each of us is that of God being. And all that getting, I hear these words, we must get understanding, is that we are the commingling of love and law. It's love and law having its tryst with each other. And in this sacred tryst, we create. And we can create boundless good. We can create a boundless energy where the divine fulfills itself and expresses itself in a sacred way. And so this Palm Sunday is about that. And what I'm going, which walk of life you come from, and it does not matter what your spiritual practice is. The important part of this entire process is being in a space where love can abound itself. So we are in the midst of Ramadan right now. And in that space of Ramadan, we get to just be in that space and we get to be cohorts in that process. Because abstinence is an important part. This fasting process that takes place, it's about fasting and letting go of those things that are of the world. And it is opening up to the infinite and the infinite possibilities. The things of the world can rot. I want you to hear that. And when I say they can rot, they have no substance. They break down, they deteriorate. But there is something in us that is resilient, that continues to revive and reveal itself again and again and again. And part of our process is releasing and letting go of our attachments. And when we learn to let go of our attachments, we open up to something that happens to us in life. The question is, how do we respond? And that response has to do with our being courageous. It's rising above prejudice. It's rising above fear. It is fasting from those things that keep us from being that which we have been called here to be. And each and every one of us have been called here to be the best we. I want you guys to hear that part. The best we that we are capable of being. And so in that process, we get to be the Christ. We get to create patterns, new patterns that will support us and support us in being successful. We get to be the Jesus. And I love that word Jesus, and to frame it in this particular way, because the Jesus is a representation of each and every one of us. There's a Jesus within each of us because we're the common part of humanity. That is something that is bred within us from the place of birth. And in there, we come into this space and this realm of infinite possibilities. But the most important part of this whole process is we get to live in a space. And this is the most important part of love. And when we know love, as a matter of fact, it's one of the Beatitudes. And he says that the first commandment is to love ourselves as God loves us, and to be a space of love for humanity. When he says love thy neighbor, he's talking about humanity. We live in that space of love. So how we serve and we show up in the world and we serve from love. I love Adrian's share with us about his 8 years of sacred service in here. This is his love. It's a representation of his love for humanity. He gets to bring the best of himself and to uplift and be a beneficial presence in the world, and he truly is committed to that. But if we were all to show up in that particular way, my God, what would this world look like? What would it look like? So I want to share a story with you, and this story is an important story, and it's a story about love and the science of love. And as I share this story, I want you to remember this important part about love, that love is revolutionary. And Valerie Carr tells us in See No Stranger, a memoir and manifesto of revolutionary love. She says, revolutionary love is practiced in community. When we come together with different groups here in this spiritual community, and I know that this community is a community that thrives because you guys are infectious and you go into other parts of other realms of this community, the Beaumont community and beyond, this whole Inland Empire, and you show up in a divine way. You go into your homes and you show up in a divine way. She says each of us has a role in any given time, and we can be midwives in this time of great transition. So Palm Sunday, we're becoming midwives. So we know the story, and we know the story about that lady, and she sees Jesus in his garment. I tried to emulate his garment today. You know, that's the reason I chose my wardrobe in that way. And he's riding on this donkey. I could feel myself riding on the donkey when Faith Rivera was singing Rise Up, if you could imagine that, riding on the donkey. And then there's this lady, she says, oh, I see the hope and the possibilities. She says, if I could just touch the hem of his garment. She wants to touch that consciousness, the rising up of the consciousness. And that is why we're here today, to rise in that consciousness. So many years ago, one of our great people, I'm going to say in the 20th century, was Albert Einstein. He's quite an interesting guy. In many respects, he contributed to the saving of the world. I hope my grandmother, she's on the other realm, is hearing that. My grandmother, all of her life, always talked to me about being saved. I came from a traditional Christian background, and she would have this conversation with all of her kids and her grandkids and offsprings about them being saved. And I truly believe I am saved by my awareness of the divine. And I believe she would be in agreement with me. And I believe Albert Einstein was one of those people that saved, and there is some wisdom from him that I think we all need to hear. In the late 1980s, Lisra, Albert Einstein's daughter, donated over 1,400 letters written by I keep wanting to say Ernest Holmes. They were quite similar in their response to the world wanting to know the thoughts of God, and I keep hearing that. But Einstein, and it was donated to the Hebrew University, published the contents until about 2 decades after his death. And there was a reason, because he knew that maybe perhaps people would have settled in and would be able to hear really what is happening. So I'm going to invite you to pause and take a breath as you listen to this letter passage. And it's a very important passage because it's about the creative dance, and it is about the most important part of dancing. He says, "Dear Lisero, when I proposed the theory of relativity, very few understood me, and what will reveal now to transmit to mankind will also collide with the misunderstanding and prejudice in the world. There is an extremely powerful force. So far, science has not found a formal explanation to. It is a force that includes and governs all others, and it's even behind any phenomenon operating in the universe and has not yet been identified by us. This universal force is love. I truly believe love is the first spiritual practice. When scientists looked for a unified, unseen force, love is light that enlightens those who give and receive it. Love is gravity because it makes some people feel attracted to others. Love is power because it multiplies the best we have and allows humanity not to be extinguished in the world in their blind selfishness. Love unfolds and reveals God is love. This force explains everything and gives meaning to life. This is the variable that we have ignored for too long. Maybe because we're afraid of love, because it is the only energy in the universe that man has not learned to drive at will. I often say about love, we all love, but we don't know how to use love. Einstein continues to say, to give visibility to love, I made a